Welcome to a new episode. We look so much forward to have our special guest today, Bruce Cryer, that you'll hear much more about in a moment. And he will teach you everything about how you can become super creative. But first, we want to say thank you for liking, sharing, and subscribing to the channel, and also say thank you to all our Magic Writing Tribe members. And if you want to be along in the tribe, you can go to the link below and get in for free. Now, on this challenge, you know that we are all about supporting soulful writers who want to tap into their creativity and shine even more, allow their voice to come through. And we really want to inspire you the best we can. And that's why we're talking to the best teachers we know to share inspiration and support you in your writing journey. And that's why we had to talk to Bruce Cryer, because this guy has so much to give on creativity, and he's one of the best teachers we know on this topic. From, being a co-creator of HeartMath to be a singer, actor, what else? Singer, actor, dancer on Broadway for years, and to teach creativity on Stanford, and also being the president of the Graduate Institute. I had to write that down. He calls himself a Renaissance human, and he's also a dear soul brother that we love very much. And we are so happy to have you here, Bruce, and share the 5 catalysts to become even more creative. So welcome, Bruce. Good to have you here.
Wonderful to be here, Ava. This is a treat, and it's great to know you and great to be part of this tribe today and for the future as well. I'm delighted to be here.
Thank you. Wow. So Bruce, you have had this remarkable journey with creativity all of your life, and I can imagine there are thousands of moments that we could tap into. But I thought about if you would like to share with us like one special moment that was like a maybe before and after, or a turning point where something shifted for you when it came to creativity. Can you imagine something to share?
Well, there have been many moments that were very memorable and in all kinds of ways that were magnificent in the midst of hearing music or seeing a sunset or whatever it may be. But the one that I think of a lot is back in 2011, I had just stepped down as CEO of HeartMath about 1 month earlier. I was just coming out of a 2-year health journey, which involved cancer, surgery for cancer, treatment for cancer. I started getting staph infections. Now I had to have treatment for the staph infections, which was part of the treatment for the cancer. Meanwhile, my mother passed away. Meanwhile, my hips were getting worse and worse and worse, and finally decided I needed to have both hips replaced. So I was in the process of doing that. And I was invited to go to a Christmas Carol concert at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C., where my brother and his wife live. And for an evening, I sang Christmas carols with great joy and great abandon with 2,000 total strangers and a chorus on stage and amazing soloists and an amazing orchestra. And I was transported into another world that evening. And people commented to me, "Who are you? You've got a beautiful voice." And I would say, "How can you hear me? There's 2,000 of us singing." But I got this very strong message that night that a voice, an inner voice, spoke to me as I was leaving the theater that night, that you are meant to sing again in public, not just in a car or in a shower or in the bathroom, in public, in front of people. And I thought, wow, I've not thought about that in 30 years. And that began a journey, which was not only to sing again, and then after my hips healed, I was able to realize I could dance again, but a new part of me awakened that was the creative passion in me that was not going to be ever turned off.
Wow. How beautiful. I never heard you tell this story before, not like
Mm,
this. What a
mm,
beautiful moment of recognizing your voice in a way
yeah,
like
yeah.
that. And I mean, for all writers listening here, we all need to get that moment when we recognize that there's a voice that needs to be heard, and
Mm.
daring also. I mean, the publicity part is a scary one, right?
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. It's one thing to sing for yourself, and another thing to sing when there's a bunch of people who want to hear something beautiful and have high standards and want to be moved and touched. Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine what my life would have been like had that not happened.
Wow, that's beautiful. And now you teach creativity to others, and I mean, I'm intrigued because you've told me that you know 5 catalysts. That's really hard to say for a Danish girl, but
Mm.
5 catalysts that will make us even more creative. And that sounds amazing. So, would you like to share what the first catalyst is? And
Yes, yes, for sure. And in saying the first, it's not more important than the others. I think of these five as on a wheel. So it's not linear, like you have to start with step one and then you move on to step two and then you go to step three. It's not that way. How I even came up with these was in 2017, 6 years later, I was approaching Stanford University about creating a course around creativity because I'd been doing it so much. I felt like I'm a different person now. I'm so much more in touch with my creativity. And they said, "We love this idea. We've not got anything for creativity and well-being." And this is what Stanford wanted. And they said, "Fantastic." And then I thought, so what have I actually done? What happened in me after I got well from all the illnesses that awakened this creativity again? And I thought, okay, number one is I was just much more mindful with heart. I was just much more mindful. I was aware of the impulse that wanted to dance or to sing or was being touched by the beauty of a moment. And that could be the moment on a television show. It could be a moment of a cat. It could be the moment of a child. It could be the moment of a sunset. But to be able to be mindful of that moment and allow yourself to be immersed in that experience was new for me at that depth. And I realized that was a very, very important catalyst. And I use the term catalyst because in chemistry, a catalyst is an ingredient, a chemical, that you add to another mixture because when you add that new ingredient, the mixture changes into something completely different. So a catalyst creates change. So a catalyst in this context is if you will be more mindful of yourself, you will be more aware of the opportunity to create that you wouldn't have seen if you were just going along in your normal routine. I get up at 6 a.m. every morning. The first thing I do, I brush my teeth, I use the bathroom, I brush my hair, I get in the shower, I meditate, I do yoga, I go downstairs, I make coffee. That routine can be kind of mindful, mindless, not mindful, even though it sounds lovely. Oh, meditation and yoga and all that. But we can be so locked into routines. So being mindful, being able to be really in the moment was to me essential to my process. And I began to realize there's all these moments I want to feel a creative energy alive in me, not just mental, not just analytical. That's great for certain things, but I want to feel like I'm in the midst of a creative experience right now.
oh,
I have
it's
to
beautiful.
be mindful, I
Yeah.
have to be aware. Yeah.
It resonates really deeply with my experience. I totally get what you are saying here because it's so. Also, when you are a writer, I think it's like it's the difference when you if you. I remember I'm just inspired here, but Maya Angelou said once that when a poem comes, you need to let go of what you have in your hands and run after it and catch it by the tail, like a kite, right? And
Mm,
that's that presence in the moment that you actually see the kite and you feel it, you feel your heart open and you
mm,
allow yourself to dance with it
mm.
in that moment. So, Wow, thank you. And is there do you have like a special, what can I say, practice that you would encourage other creatives to do to become more present, or is that a longer thing?
Well, yes, it's a longer thing. On the other hand, the idea of mindfulness, the idea of doing meditations from the heart, to
Yeah.
me, the reason I call it mindfulness with heart is that the concept of mindfulness people can relate to now. It's very common, it's very mainstream. But I like to distinguish that what I'm talking about is involves your heart. It's not just about quieting your mind or making your mind open. It's engaging the heart as well. And
Mm.
so that practice, as we've learned and have taught for 30 years now with heart math, is that as you just begin to deepen your breath and make the breath a little more steady, like we found, and we encourage people to do about a 10-second breath, meaning you breathe in for about 5 seconds and then you breathe out for about 5 seconds. That's slower than most people normally breathe when you're not thinking about it, right? So by slowing down the breath a little bit, and then taking the time to be grateful for something that happened today, or grateful that you're going to get to see somebody tomorrow or next week, or you're going somewhere, and to have that sense of excitement or anticipation, which brings you into your heart. So these practices of deepening the breath, first of all, helps to bring your nervous system, your body, your biochemistry, everything into more of an alignment.
Mm.
If you're more aligned, there's less noise in your system. If there's less noise in your system, you can hear yourself better. You
Yeah.
can be more mindful of that
Mm.
intention that is in there that's trying to say, hello, it's time to write, it's time to sing. That voice is in there, and it's hard to hear it when
Yeah.
all the noise is going on. But the breathing helps that to just quiet everything down so you can become more aware and listen better. But then engaging fun feelings or feelings of gratitude or appreciation can shift your frame so much, as we know. As soon as you focus, as soon as you're awed by I mean, I was having dinner with a friend recently, and stepped out onto a balcony. We're just having a conversation. I said, "Excuse me, we're in the presence of a sunset. I already know this is going to be incredible, so just bear with me, because from time to time, whatever you're saying, I'm going to be gone, because I'm just going to go into, oh my God, do you see it over there? Look at the pink over there. I'm going to be completely lost in it, because that's just the way I am." So I was kind of letting her know, just be prepared. If you were expecting some other kind of conversation, we're in the presence of a magnificent sunset.
Yeah.
So allowing yourself to do that, allowing
Mm.
yourself to be awed, um, but you have to be mindful enough to even pay attention.
Yeah.
If people say to me, "How are you able to find so many amazing sunsets?" Because I look up,
You
and then
look
if I
up.
see something, yeah,
Yeah.
because and then if I see something, I run to it, or I make myself present for it, and I don't just leave, oh, gorgeous sunset, and then go back to what I was doing. I'll stand out there as I did that night, for 20 minutes, watching all the phases of the sunset just unfold and unfold, and reach richer colors, and then more distinct clouds, and then the clouds moving, and it's like it's a symphony that keeps on going. It's not a snapshot. And
Exactly.
so that requires some mindful presence to be able to even allow yourself to do that.
Beautiful. That's wonderful. And I think just by practicing that, we are we are coming closer to to be kissed by inspiration. There's something about that. You make yourself available when you're present.
Exactly.
Uh, I love it. So, is there anything else you want to add to this first catalyst, or should we move on to the next?
Happy to move on. Well, there's lots I could add. I'm going to do a 6-week course
Yeah.
I'll talk a lot about it, but yeah, the second one I
Yeah.
call movement.
Mm.
Movement. And I thought of this before COVID, but thanks to COVID, this catalyst has become more important than ever, because for many of us, for 18 months, our lifestyles have been restricted physically, let alone socially, in ways that were completely unexpected. And I was talking to a friend in Italy today, and at the end of the call, he says, "I send you a warm hug," because he knows there's nobody nearby that I have to hug. There's no family members. There's no close friends that live near me. I'm in a hugless zone at the moment. It's not fun. But my point being, with we're in general we haven't been moving as much, but also even if it wasn't still a pandemic, it's easy to get locked in on computer. In this case, we're on Zoom, and as many of us are a lot, and to forget that we are beings that need to move. And many a time, I would be writing something. I'd be working on a book or editing something or writing a blog or writing. I've written millions of pages of all kinds of things over the years, and I'd be stuck. And my intuition would tell me, get up and move, whether that means just walk outside and go get the mail, or go walk down to the pool, or walk down to the yard and take your shoes off and walk in the grass and ground your energy into the earth. Just move. And there's something about just the action of moving, especially if it's in any kind of enjoyable moving. Walking in the grass qualifies, dancing qualifies, doing any activity you love qualifies. Movement that gives you some joy and some release allows creative energy to then flow through you. What I've been
Beautiful.
trying to describe to people, especially in this era of being on Zoom, on a video conference so much, is that we are in this shape a lot.
Yeah.
Vertical, legs out, feet on the floor. That's not the shape of flow. That's the shape of it's getting stuck in there somehow. It has to make these hard turns in the energy. And if you move, and of course I'm very expressive because I was a dancer and still am a dancer, and so I love to really move and allow my body to feel flexible and get the kinks out. Oh yeah, a little bit in there. I want to move it to free up the energy, but you don't have to be that way. You can just walk outside, and just the action of walking outside into nature can free up energy, and then suddenly you're tapped into what I call your own river of creativity simply by moving. It's not as tricky as it sounds. I also believe if you do things like dance to music that you love, preferably without any self-consciousness, in other words, nobody's watching, you can just completely be yourself. That process, you're surrendering to a certain creative flow in yourself to even do that. That same creative
Um,
flow is what you need to write or do anything creative. So again, this is why I call it a catalyst. You start moving, dancing, it may not have anything to do with the writing you're trying to do, but you're freeing up the energy that you need for the writing.
It makes so much sense to me. I love what you share here. And it also tied into what we just talked with Yvette Taylor about last week, where we talked about
Uh,
energy alignment, and
yeah.
it all comes together, right? Love it. And it makes me think of, Paulo Coelho, who has his daily walk. I follow him on Insta, right? And there's,
Mm,
I think many writers have recognized that we need to walk it out also when we feel blocked. A walk is always a good idea, or a dance or something. So amazing. Makes so much sense to me, and I guess to the listeners. So should we move on to the third catalyst? This is so good. This is golden nuggets you're sharing with us.
thank you. Well, I've already alluded to the third one, which is nature.
Ah,
And so, in my experience, again, in going back to my healing process and how I got into a mode where I really felt like I was on top of it instead of it was being kind of one thing after another and one serious thing after another and feeling like I'm getting very old very quickly. Will I make it through all this? Obviously, I did. But one of the biggest things that I was doing at the time was just to be out in nature more and to breathe the air, really breathe the air as the life energy that is in the air, and breathe that in, not just the air itself. But and as I deepened my own practice of kind of appreciating nature, I began to realize nature is not only obviously a living system, but when you walk outside in nature, life is everywhere. Even in a desert, life is everywhere. You are in the midst of, if you have any question being indoors that you're somehow separate from life, go outside, you're in it. Trees are alive. They're going through all kinds of processes. Grass is alive, birds are alive, insects are alive. The sun is creating biochemical interactions in the plants, in the animals, that is causing them to be alive in different ways, just as the rain does that, just as nightfall does that. This is a living system. We're walking into fields of energy.
Mm.
We're walking into literal fields, perhaps if we can get to an actual field, but wherever we are, they're fields of energy created by the plants, the trees, the animals, the birds, the everything. And so to walk into nature with that awareness that I'm walking into the natural world, the natural life, which is all energy, which is all life, which is happening fine without our input. If we were gone tomorrow, trees would do just fine. I was gone from my place for 5 days and came back. The plants had done just fine without me. They didn't stop growing without my love. So being in nature, being aware of all the communication that is happening in nature, being aware that there's intelligence. You're walking into an intelligent system. If that seems odd because we don't tend to use the word intelligence with plants, well, let me give you an example. Trees have 15 additional sensory systems beyond what humans have. 15 more. Trees can sense all kinds of information from the earth, from the air, from the sun, from other trees. It's been noted that in certain forests, if one species of tree is being attacked by a fungus or an insect infestation, other trees that aren't being affected will send nutrients underground to the trees that are being attacked. This happens.
No, that's
It
beautiful.
happens.
Wow.
It happens.
Yeah.
And there's so many examples of intelligence of trees and all kinds of life being able to sense things that we humans cannot sense. One obvious example, dogs can hear frequencies we cannot hear. There's a whole other world happening of sound we cannot hear because the hardware we have is tuned to what we need as humans. We don't need bird radar in order to navigate how to get down to the grocery store. So we don't have those senses. My point being, we're walking into intelligent systems. Yes, it's a bird chirping. Do you realize how much intelligence that bird needs to just chirp, let alone know where to find food, let alone how to eat the food and digest the food? It's all intelligence. And why does that matter? Because to me, it's kind of cool that instead of just looking at nature as beauty, which it is, it's incredible beauty if we allow ourselves enough mindfulness to drink it in and enjoy that sunset and be willing to stand there for 20 minutes because it's going to keep on changing. But it's also intelligence that can affect ours,
Mm.
not by literally making us smarter, but I mean, who listening to this right now can't say that at some point in their life, walking on a beach, walking in a mountain, walking in a forest, looking at a sunset, caused their mental faculties to get clearer, and they suddenly had clarity on how to deal with a problem,
It's so
or a
true.
creative idea came up,
Yeah.
a creative idea even occurred to them. So nature is a catalyst, because if you allow yourself to be out in nature, not just go through the motions and walk because I'm getting my daily walk in. Good. How about breathing nature? It's alive. It's sensing things you're not sensing. There's a world it can perceive that you can't perceive unless you try.
It's amazing. I love it. And I mean, for me, and I think for many who also are spiritual, if you can say it like that, we are quite open
Mhm.
about our spirituality in this podcast.
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
for me, I mean, it makes a lot of sense what you're saying, and also there's the dimension of nature as a portal that just connects me with
Mm.
the God energy. It's all what we call it, right? Intelligence, but to me, it's also connecting with source and with universe, and so yeah, more nature. I love it.
Can't get too much. And to me, the issues we're facing, forget the pandemic, the issues we're facing with our climate, how extreme the climate is. I have a personal belief that humanity will not really take this seriously unless we hit another level of deep love for nature, deep gratitude for nature, deep joy. Like if we don't realize what's really going on in nature that's still relatively healthy. I mean, when I look outside today, everything looks great. There's no wildfires, there's no hurricanes, there's no global warming that I can feel. It's going great, right? If we can't love nature, we're never going to care for it enough to save it. So
That's
climate
a
change,
beautiful.
if we're not going to be in love with what we have
Yeah,
and be determined to make the changes we need in us in order for the policies and the rules and whatever laws to change, the practices to change. So to me, it's a big deal. It's
yeah,
a big deal.
it is. Wow, wonderful perspective. So that brings us to, are we on the fourth
We are.
catalyst? Yeah, I can
The
count.
fourth one. You
Yeah.
can. Very good. Excellent. Yeah, playfulness. Playfulness.
Hmm.
Uh, I call playfulness the wonder drug of creativity because in my mind, if you can adopt a playful attitude in any at any point of your life for any reason, it is such a game changer in that moment. Like if you can become playful when you just got terrible news. So one time years ago, this is probably going back at least 20 years, I was CEO of HeartMath, and we had just had a really bad month. We were doing well in general, but it was this was after 9/11, and the economy was still strange in the US, and it was hard. People weren't traveling and whatnot, and we were being affected. And this one particular month, it was particularly rough. And we were very open with all of our staff, and we would share every month the financials. And this was going to be potentially really scary to people because we had done so badly in this one month. And as the meeting started, I said, "Okay, guys, so here's what's going on. This is going to be a challenging meeting." And I did it kind of in this tone too. I wasn't trying to be heavy. It was like, it's going to be a bit of a challenging meeting. You're going to see some data from last month that's pretty wild, and we didn't do well. And so we have a choice. We could either get really worried or we could just kind of laugh at it. I proposed the latter. Should we try that? And I showed the first graph, and it was like, oh my God, we lost that much money in one month. Oh my God. And I said, so, um, which do you want to do? Do you want to start crying, or should we laugh about it? And somebody starts laughing, and there's some people kind of like, let's laugh. Okay, let's do that. And then we did that for that graph, and I explained what was going on. And then we moved to the next one. I said, okay, what'll it be? And they started laughing. And the laughter then became kind of infectious. And then as I kept bringing up these slides, all of which had terrible financial news, none of them were positive at all. As soon as I'd put up another slide, the laughter would just be like wails of laughter. And it became, you couldn't stop laughing. And it was probably the best monthly meeting we'd ever had, and things did turn around. And we knew it wasn't like we were literally gonna have to fire everybody or go out, but we also thought this is an important choice, and I chose playfulness, and everybody went with it. And that was the best part, was that just turn on the next slide, and then just people were cracking up all over the place. It was hilarious, and that was a powerful lesson, because one of the things about creativity in business is if you're coming from desperation, if you're really stressed financially, to find creative ideas when you're really stressed and really desperate, not easy. But if your energy can be freer and you can be more playful, it's a whole nother story. And the other aspect of playfulness that I love to remind us adults about is if you ever walk up on children who are at play, especially younger ones like 4 to 8, and they've got their dolls, or they've got the little GI Joes, little army things, or Legos, or whatever they're playing with, but they're playing, and they've got a whole world going on there. They have created a world way more than just what you see with the little figures or the dolls or whatever else. There's a whole story going on here. And you as the adult, not only your body starts to change. I mean, you literally start to do postures that you would not normally do as an adult. Your voice starts to change. You start to take on the voice of a child. We do this, right? We all do this. And we start to then notice even traits of letting go, that we would have done when we were that age, that now, like, oh, I can't do that. I'm an adult. I have to be proper. I'm the provider. I'm all this. And I said, so watch what you actually do when you're in the presence of young kids who are at play. And doesn't that just change you? And so I'm saying, look, we've got that in us. You don't have to be 8 years old to be playful. We got it. We've convinced ourselves it's not as appropriate at this age. It's not as appropriate in the workplace. It's not as appropriate as the father or whatever. I'm saying, says who? Okay, society. Okay, you get that one. You point to society, but society doesn't get to decide your life, actually. It's like really like every day up to you, totally, actually. Every thought is up to you every day, totally, actually. So,
Wow, that's amazing, Bruce. I love it. And I mean, this is so much in the spirit of what we do in the Magical Writers Tribe as well, because
mm.
we practice what I call conscious foolishness. And that
Oh, I
is
love
like,
that.
choosing consciously to be playful and actually be silly and, allow that inner child energy, because that's a artist child inside. This is the one who writes. So it's so
Exactly,
aligned with
exactly.
how we work with it also. So thank you for sharing. Amazing.
My pleasure.
Which brings us to the fifth catalyst.
The final one, yeah, and I could have easily, as I started teaching this program, I easily could have added others. So I just kind of felt like, let me keep it simple. Let me keep it to the things I actually did in my own journey to get my creative mojo back. This is all what I really did. And the last one is artistic expression, meaning anything that you do creatively. One of my favorite stories is a physician friend of mine in South Africa who, when she was in college, she had a choice of going into art or medicine. Pretty different. She decided practical brain, going into medicine. And it did, and became eventually an integrative doctor and loved that. But there was a part of her that always regretted she hadn't done more with art. And she had a strong yearning to do pottery and sculpture. And finally, at 50, I think she was around 50 when she finally did this, she went back and took a pottery class. The story does not end with her having given up medicine and become a full-time potter, and now she's got a great career as a potter. Not at all. She changed her practice, her medical practice. She's still a doctor, but now she does pottery all the time when she has free time. So what the experience of that was, it got her working with her hands in a way that was very tactile, but also very enriching for her soul, and gave her a connection to a creative experience that was what she was lacking in the medical practice. And so that led her to want to do her own practice differently. So what I think the point that I'm trying to make too is that if you have wished you were have if you loved to write 20 years ago and haven't done it for years, go for it. Doesn't mean you ever have to be public about it. Go for it. Why would you not? If you ever felt like, I'm a better singer than my father thought. My father kept discouraging me from singing, but I think I love music. I think I need to do that. Absolutely do it. So it's not about the public display of an artistic expression. It's about the act of doing it and the joy that comes from the doing of it. I get to perform. I'm a singer, I've trained professionally. I've been a professional singer. I get to do this little event in New York City in a chapel. It's called Peaceable Hour. We do it a couple times a month now with the pandemic, only a couple times a month. We have at the most 10 people in the audience, and some weeks it's 3 or 4. So this event is clearly not about the performance. It's not about the audience. It's not about all the applause, because we don't even allow applause in this event. It's about creating peace through the listening to gorgeous music performed by classically trained musicians who are exceptional at their craft. So, but the experience is the beauty of it is I feel so expressive as an artist doing this, as opposed to a performer where when there's applause and there's cheers. As a singer with an ego, you hear, wait a minute, my song didn't get as good a response as Sarah's did. Why do they like her better? Well, that's just kind of ruined the whole experience for you, probably for the audience too. But in something like this, I am just singing for the sheer joy of singing, knowing they're probably going to love it because the songs are beautiful and it sounds fantastic in this space. It's a very sacred space, and the resonance of the music sounds wonderful every time. But it's the chance to express the art, express how I feel through songs. That is like, if I never got paid again in my life, I wouldn't care for that. I don't get paid. That costs me money. I drive 2 hours into New York City through tunnels and parking garages. It cost me a lot of money to just go down to do it. And the joy I get and the energy that comes to me, that is fuel for other areas of my life that I need. When I know I'm going to do one of those events, it's like for weeks leading up to it and after. It's like I got to sing. I sang in New York last Saturday night, or last Monday night. It's like,
Wow.
wow. So
Beautiful.
artistic expression doesn't mean what it is. I miss gardening. I haven't been in a situation where I've really had a garden to tend in about 7 years, 8 years. No. Oh my God, 10. A real garden to tend. It's been 10 years since I've had a garden to tend. I've had plants and flowers and whatnot, but I haven't had a garden to tend, and I miss that. I started pulling weeds in this Airbnb where I live the other day, just for the fun of watching things get more beautiful because I'm pulling up weeds.
Mm.
So we should not belittle the urge to express ourselves artistically in any way that, or any ways that occur to us, but don't make it about the result. Don't make it, oh, I've got to do the writing because I've got to prove that I'm to somebody else. That can come if you want, but let it be just for the joy of the expression and the fun of trying something. And
That's
that's
really,
why I call
really,
that a catalyst.
yeah, it's amazing. And it is really a catalyst. I can hear that. Wow, thank you. I mean, this is so good. And I think many of us needs to hear this. And especially there's something about tying your identity to doing it. Like I'm a writer because I write. I'm not a writer because I'm published. So now we are
Yes.
in a writer's podcast, and then the joy and enjoying feeling the life force flowing through us, and that's the gift in being creative. So I totally love this one too. Now, Bruce, we could talk all day, but I have to ask you three very silly questions because we love conscious foolishness, right?
Exactly.
So these are three questions we want to ask all our guests, so no one can escape them. So, can you imagine that you could choose three? You could choose.
I was trying to escape. I was
You
trying to
tried to
escape.
escape. Oh, good, you're back.
Here you
If you could imagine that you could pick three persons now living or from the other side, or even fictive figures, to invite for an intimate dinner party, who would that be? And you can choose freely, right? And maybe why? I'd like to know why.
go. I got to come up with a third, but it's interesting. So Maya Angelou, um, Rumi,
Ooh.
Nelson Mandela. So all three, I guess what ties them together, if there's a tie, number one, they were all completely themselves. Rumi, I don't exactly know what he was like, but the way he writes, what he was tapping into, he was fully himself at a time in the late 1200s when he was writing, 800 years ago. Wasn't exactly a thing. Be yourself, be authentic. He was just doing it. Maya Angelou was a Renaissance human. I mean, she was everything. She could do so much, and so much about love. And Nelson Mandela, of all the things, I mean, I think one of the I wrote about this recently, that his ability to forgive his captors, forgive the guards, forgive the wardens, forgive the white oppressors in South Africa, And as he was leaving the prison cell after 25 years at the Robben Island prison, where I've been there on an island off Cape Town. It's remarkable to go to and imagine this is where he was confined for 25 years of his life. And as he was leaving, his commitment to leave it all behind, that he was not going to carry bitterness, resentment, anger with him. And to me, that was like an incredible feat of creative alchemy. He had to take that energy, which could have been so easy to hold on to and just tear into him forever. And so many people it would, after that level of oppression and almost dying. You could easily carry that with you until it kills you. And to be able to alchemize, to be able to creatively take that energy and create good out of it, it then inspired a whole generation of young African men and women who believe, well, maybe I can do that too. And realizing the only way that country could even exist is if they could somehow reconcile. So national reconciliation became the process. Now you could look at South Africa today and say, well, they're not exactly doing great. Well, how many hundreds of years were they in the old modality? You think it's going to happen overnight? Really? We all had. If I was in South Africa, I would have to get retrained in all kinds of ways, just like everybody has had. But I think for the way they each of them lived lives very courageously, had to take situations which would have crushed other people easily, and not only weren't crushed, but grew to be giants.
You know
And
what, Bruce? Can I come and be along in that dinner party? That sounds really good. I mean, wow, what a crowd of those three. They are amazing. Thank you. I love it. So then I'll take you to the next one, which is
well, that was only one. That's right. That was a
yeah.
three-part question. That's not fair.
So the next question is, which book would you wish that you had written and why? And you're not allowed to pick any that you have written yourself, right? So is there a book you would wish was yours?
Well, I think I told you about this book, but it's not one book. It's actually 6 books. And it's been a huge part of my spiritual growth over the past 2 years. And it's called Life and Teaching of the Masters of the Far East. And the spiritual wisdom and the depth that is expressed in this book, on these books, series of 6 little books, is remarkable. And I'm trying to live it. As far as being able to be in a position to have written it, that's a whole nother thing. But if I could have lived this, so I could have written this, wow. Because the author of the book was there in India and China and Mongolia and Tibet and wherever they went with these masters. It's a remarkable story. But the man who wrote the book was in this journey that lasted several years. And so he was there and was experiencing this incredible wisdom and experiences that completely screw with your mind, your linear analytical mind, that like, no, there's no way that could have possibly happened. And yet so many adventures happened that were unexplainable by anything other than divine intervention.
Wow.
And so to have lived that, let alone to have been able to write about that, is remarkable. So I would love to be able to write a book that would similarly have that much depth of wisdom and lived experience, not just philosophical musings, but
That's
lived
beautiful.
experience that I could
That's
write
beautiful.
from.
It's I mean, that those books are on my wish list. They sound amazing. So thank you for sharing the inspiration. And the name of the title of the book again?
Life and Teaching of the Masters of the Far East.
Good.
The books were published.
Just for the viewers to take the notes. Yeah.
They were
Sounds
published 100 years ago.
Wow.
The expedition happened in the late 1800s, and
Yeah.
they were published sometime in early 1900s.
Wow, amazing. Yeah. Now, I know that you come from a very heartfelt place right now, but I will take you to the next question that is a bit silly. What would you blush if anyone knew about you as a writer, when you write, or as a creative. We can open it up a little bit because you do more than writing. Have any strange rituals or something that we shouldn't know, but that you'll now have to share?
What would I blush if somebody knew? Well, the first thing that came to mind is that when I was in college, I co-choreographed a dance with this fellow college student friend of mine in our dance company. And she was a beautiful young African American woman. And we'd found this soundtrack that was a strange soundtrack. And it was political and it was about social injustice. And it was very intense. And we were assigned a choreographer. We designed this dance. And it was about kind of breaking out. And the name of the dance was Pression. A dash and then the letters pression, Pression. So you could say, oh, you mean oppression? Oh, do you mean suppression? Oh, do you mean repression? Oh, do you mean compression? And the answer was yes. So it was a very powerful dance. You either loved it or hated it. There was no middle ground. The the costume designer we were assigned decided that the best way for us to be attired was to actually not be attired. That he was a medical illustrator on the side, so he understood the anatomy of the human form amazingly well, and he body painted us each night that we performed. It took 3 hours,
Wow.
and I wasn't completely naked. There was a latex thing between my legs, and my partner likewise. But that was a wild experience to not only have to stand in a very hot room so that I didn't freeze, and so I could then still dance for 3 hours every night for it was just 3 performances, and then going out on stage and performing this dance. Which again it was very strong, it was very dynamic, and either you hated it or you loved it. But possibly the most embarrassing part of the whole thing was that of all the dance concerts I was in college, the only one my grandmother could attend was that one. And then my dear brother who brought her, along with my nephew who was about like 4 years old, they sat in pretty much the front row. So I'm doing this dance pretty much naked, but in body paint, so we looked amazing. We looked like anatomical figures with muscles enhanced, and when we were breathing heavily, you could really see that in the ribs because of the way it was enhanced. So it was very striking, you know. My grandmother is sitting in the front row, along with my little 4-year-old nephew, who's like, what what's going on? So that was kind of the whole thing was just a very interesting experience.
That was a blushing one. I understand that. And of course, she could only come there, of course. That's so typical. Love it.
Exactly.
Thanks for sharing. That was a good one.
Okay, good.
Wow. So, Bruce, this has been amazing. And what an amazing value you have given us today, and shared so much inspiration on all these 5 catalysts. And wow, it's been amazing. And I wonder, how can people get to work with you? Is there anywhere they can get to work with you, be more inspired by you, whatever?
Absolutely. I have a website, my name, brucecrier.com. Specifically, I'm launching this masterclass on creativity, and it's happening very soon. I think we're going to start October 14th. And it's an opportunity to dive into this field, these 5 catalysts over 6 weeks. And I've never done a 6-week program quite like this before, so I'm very much excited to see what happens. And the group, it becomes very much a group experience, even though you're having your own experience as an individual, as a creator yourself, because you're working together with a group that are also experiencing, as you know, with the Magical Writers Tribe, it's the collective, the power of the collective is really apparent. The
It
power of the
sounds amazing.
bonding and the support and
Yeah.
the love of each other that goes on is a huge part of the value, I think. So that's an exciting thing coming up.
Let's put a link for that here below the video so people
Perfect.
can
Yeah.
go and check that out. And actually, I do know about this because I'm coming also in one of the sessions and sharing. Isn't that right?
Absolutely, it's right. You know, when you and I have talked, I thought this would be a wonderful way for people to go deeper in the writing part of this creative unfoldment than I'm able to take people. I mean, we do some writing anyway, but what you bring from your way of looking and teaching and coaching writing, the magical way in which you do it, I can't wait to have that be part of this class. It'll be fantastic.
I look so much forward to that. And yeah, it will be an amazing journey for those who join us. And yeah, so good. So we'll put a link for that for everyone who are curious about that. And also the link for your homepage so people can go and see more. And, wow. Thank you, Bruce. This has been amazing. What a gift to have you here.
My pleasure, Ava. It's I hear the lawnmower outside, so I think we're ending just about the right time. But it's a treat to talk about this, and it's a treat to bounce off of your energy. You have such a warm and such a delightful, so alive, your energy. So it's that's what I'm trying to awaken in people is what you have.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you
That's
so
lovely
much.
to hear. Yeah, thank you. And let's send some love to the viewers and listeners. And, if you found this helpful and inspiring and insightful, like this video and share it with your friends and sign up in the tribe and come and join Bruce and, let this continue. So then we will give the stage to Mukti, our lovely singer, who will sing for us. And I'll invite you to actually, in the spirit of this session, sit with your eyes closed and really take in the energy, take in the beauty of the moment with Mukti and enjoy.
Nothing better to do. I went and grabbed my guitar to play some old tune. But suddenly I found I never heard a tune before. I stopped to listen carefully, then I played that song some more. The words kept coming to my mind and I had to write them down. It was like the song was already written. When it was ready, it was passed down for me to bring it to the world. The music I could hear, these sweet melodies I had playing in my ear. Ooh, da 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 da. Ooh, da 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 da. Sweet melodies for you and me. No, I didn't know music, I never wrote a song before. It was like a dam had broken down, they kept coming more and more. But telling the story of the past years of my life, words of wisdom leading to somewhere we can thrive. Ooh, da 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 da. Ooh, da 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 da. Ooh, da 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 da. So I decided to go out and share it with the world. Words and melodies gives people something to